In this class, we are going to discuss about the features and various types of negotiable instruments. What is a negotiable instrument? Instruments of credit transferable from one person to another is called negotiable instruments. Instruments of credit transferable from one person to another are called negotiable instrument. And in that, negotiable means transferable from one person to another. And instruments means written documents which creates rights in favor of someone. That is, instrument means written document which creates rights in favor of someone else. That is, the rights of using that instrument is vested with some other person. It is a document by which a right can be transferred from one person to another in accordance with the provision of Negotiable Instrument Act 1881. That is, it is a document by which we can transfer the right from one person to another in accordance with the provision of Negotiable Instrument Act 1881. For example, check is a negotiable instrument. When we give a check to another person, then we are transferring the right to that person. That type of transferring happens in the case of the negotiable, or we can transfer the right to someone else. These types of instruments are known as negotiable instruments. And the definition of negotiable instruments are given here. According to Section 13 of Negotiable Instrument Act 1881, a negotiable instrument means promissory note, bill of exchange, or check payable either or to order or to the bearer. This is the definition of the negotiable instrument as per the Negotiable Instrument Act 1881. Then the types of negotiable instrument act, that is in the definition itself they have given the various types of the negotiable instrument: promissory note, bill of exchange, or check. According to Negotiable Instrument Act 1881, there are three types of negotiable instruments, that is promissory note, bill of exchange, and checks. However, many other documents are also recognized as negotiable instrument on the basis of the customs and usage, like handis, treasury bills, share warrants, etc. Features of negotiable instrument. A negotiable instrument is freely transferable. First important feature is that it is freely transferable. That is, when we transfer any proper. In the case of the negotiable instrument, we know that there are three types of the negotiable: promissory note, bill of exchange, and check. In the case of the check, we know that when we give a check to some other person, we won't impose any fee, or we won't receive any money for giving a check. That is, we transfer the check freely to the another person. That is the first feature. Negotiable instrument is freely transferable. Second one, negotiability confers absolute and good title on the transferee. That is, this transfer gives absolute as well as good title or a right on the transferee. And that it means that a person who receives a negotiable instrument has a clear and undisputable title to the instrument. That is, he has 100% right over that instrument. Then third feature is that negotiable instrument must be in writing. The writing includes handwriting, typing, computer printouts, engraving, etc. Are also, that is, it must be in a written format. Then next feature is that in every negotiable instrument there must be a conditional order or promise to pay. In every negotiable instrument there must be an unconditional order or promise to pay. Then another feature is that instrument must involve payment of certain sum of money only, nothing. That is, the instrument must involve the payment of sum of money only. That is, we cannot include any other assets, goods, etc. Then another feature is that the time of payment must be certain. That is, it must include the correct and specified time. The pay must be a certain person. The person to whom the instrument are going to give must be a certain. It won't be vague. Then a negotiable instrument must bear the signature of the maker. Those who make this instrument the signature of the person who makes the instrument must be there in the instrument. Then delivery of instrument is essential. A negotiable instrument like a check or a promissory note is not complete till it is delivered to its payee. That is, it must be given to that payee. Stamping of bill of exchange and promissory note is mandatory, but in the case of check it is not mandatory. That is, stamping is mandatory in the case of bill of exchange and promissory note. Then the another important feature is right to sue. Right to sue means we can approach the court if any illegal things happens in the case of the negotiable, or we have 100% legal backing in the case of the negotiable instruments. Now we'll see the various types of negotiable instruments. These negotiable instruments we have seen are of three types: promissory note, bill of exchange, and check. The first type of negotiable instrument is promissory note. According to Section 4 of Negotiable Instrument Act 1881, a promissory note is defined as an instrument in a writing, note being a banknote or a currency note, containing an unconditional undertaking signed by the maker to pay a certain sum of money only to or to the other order only to or to the order of a certain person or to the bearer of the instrument. That is, an instrument it must be in writing, containing an unconditional undertaking signed by the maker to pay a certain sum of money only to or to the order of a certain person or to the bearer of the instrument. This is the definition given for the promissory note according to the Negotiable Instrument Act 1881. That is, it must be in writing, it must contain unconditional undertaking only, and it must be duly signed by the maker. It must contain only to pay a certain sum of money only, and the right must be given to certain person or to the person who bear the instrument. These are the this is the definition given for promissory notes. And the parties to a promissory notes includes a maker or a drawer. The person who makes the notes and promises to pay is known as the maker or the drawer, and the pay is the person to whom the amount is payable. That is, there are two parties in a promissory notes. Then features of promissory note is that we have already seen it must be in writing, it must contain an undertaking to pay, undertaking or a promise to pay. The promise to pay must be conditional. Then it must contain promise to pay money only, and the parties of the promissory notes, the maker and the pay, must be certain, and the promissory note may be payable on demand or after a certain date. Then some payable mention must be certain and capable of being made certain. Then the second category of negotiable instrument is the bill of exchange. Bill of exchange can be defined as it is defined under Section 5 of Negotiable Instrument Act 1881. It is defined under Section 5 of Negotiable Instrument Act 1881. A bill of exchange is an instrument in a writing containing. The second important instrument is bill of exchange, and Section 5 of Negotiable Instrument Act 1881 defines a bill of exchange as an instrument in writing containing an unconditional order signed by the maker directing a certain person to pay a certain sum of money only to or to the order of a certain person or to the bearer of the instrument. Here everything is same, except here there will be a word directing a certain person to pay a certain sum of money. That is, it is an instrument in writing, it contains unconditional order signed by the maker, but it directs a certain person to pay a certain sum of money only to or to the order of a certain person or to the bearer of the instrument. Then the parties of the bill of exchange are, there are three parties. That is, there is an direction. Then the drawer, the person who makes; drawee, the person to whom the order to pay is made; payee, the person to whom the payment is to be made. These are the three parties in a bill of exchange. That is, in a promissory note there will be two parties only, but in bill of exchange there will be parties. Then the features of bill of exchange are: it must be in writing, it must contain an order to pay, The order must be unconditional. The order must be to pay a certain sum of money only. The sum payable mentioned must be a certain or capable of being made certain. A comparison of bill of exchange and promissory note is given in this section. In the case of the promissory note, there are two parties, whereas in the case of the bill of exchange, there are three parties. And the promissory note contains the clause of the promise to pay, whereas in the bill of exchange we have seen it is an order to pay. And in the case of the promissory note, acceptance is not necessary, but in the case of the bill of exchange, acceptance is necessary. Liability of the maker is primary and absolute in the case of the promissory note, but in the case of the bill of exchange, liability of the drawer is secondary and conditional. Then promissory note, the maker stands in direct relationship with the payee, whereas the drawer stands in direct relationship with the acceptor and not with the payee. In the case of the bill of exchange, there are three parties. In the case of the promissory notes, there are two parties only. Therefore, there will be a direct relationship between the payee and the maker, whereas in the case of the bill of exchange, there are three parties, and therefore the relationship with the payee won't be direct. Notice of dishonor need not be given to the maker in the case of the promissory note, but the notice of dishonor is to be given to the parties by the holder. And these are some of the important features of the promissory notes and bill of exchange. Then the next important instrument is check, and check is a common form of negotiable instrument. If you have a saving bank account or a current account in a bank, you can issue a check in your own name or in favor of others. It's defined as follows. The Negotiable Instrument Act 1881 defines a check as a bill of exchange drawn on a specified banker and not expressed to be payable otherwise than on demand. Actually, the check is an order by the account holder of a bank directing his banker to pay on demand the specified amount to the order of the person named therein to the bearer. That is, it is a negotiable instrument. As per the Negotiable Instrument Act 1881, a check is defined as a bill of exchange drawn on a specified banker and not expressed to be payable otherwise than on demand. Actually, a check is an order by the account holder of a bank directing the banker to pay a certain sum of money on demand. The features of check are: check must be in writing and duly signed by the drawer, and it must contain an unconditional order. It is issued on a specified banker only. The amount specified is always certain and must be clearly mentioned. The pay is always certain and it is always payable on demand. The check must bear date, otherwise it is invalid. These are the features of check. The types of check include open check. Open check means a check is called open when it is possible to get cash over the counter. And closed check means since open check is subject to the risk of theft, this risk can be avoided by issuing another types of the check, namely closed check. The payment of such check is not made over the counter of the bank. It is credited to the account of the holder. Bearer check means check which is payable on any person who presented it for payment. Order check is one which is payable to a particular person. In such a check, the word bearer must be cut and cancelled and the word order must be written. A comparison of check and bill of exchange is given here, and a check is drawn usually on some person or firm, and bill of exchange is drawn always on bank. And drawee has to be the banker only. Drawee can be anyone including a bank in the case of the bill of exchange. Then in the case of check, no acceptance is necessary by the drawee or payee, and in the case of the bill of exchange, acceptance is necessary by the drawee. Always payable on demand in the case of check. The amount is always payable on demand. In the case of the check, may be payable either on demand or on the expiry of the fixed period. In the case of the check, no grace period for making payment, but in the case of bill of exchange, 3 days of grace period are allowed. Some other differences are, in the case of the check, stamping is not required, but in the case of bill of exchange, its stamping is mandatory. And in the case of the check, it can be grossed, but in the case of the bill of exchange, it cannot be grossed. And made payable to the bearer is valid. Bill payable on demand can never be drawn payable to the bearer. And in the case of check, usually intended for immediate payment, the bill of exchange is not intended for immediate payment. Payment cannot be countermanded, but in the case of the bill of exchange, payment cannot be. In the case of the check, payment can be countermanded, but in the case of the bill of exchange, payment cannot be countermanded by the drawer. These are the important similarity these are the important differences between the check and bill of exchange. In this section, a brief explanation about the dishonor of a check is given. If the check is not if the amount is not given by a bank, then it is said that that check is dishonored. What are the reasons for this dishonoring, etc. is given here. A check is said to be honored if a bank gives the amount to the pay, while if the bank refuses to pay the amount to the payee, the check is said to be dishonored. In other words, dishonor of a check is a condition in which bank refuses to pay the amount of check to the pay. That is, if bank refuses to pay the amount to the pay, then it is known as the dishonor of the check. Whenever the check is dishonored, the drawee bank instantly issues a check return memo to the payee banker specifying the reason for dishonor. The payee banker provides the memo and dishonored check to the payee. The payee has an option to resubmit the check within 3 months of the date specified on the check after fulfilling the reasons for the dishonor of the check. Or if the drawer fails to make a fresh payment within 30 days of receiving the notice, the payee has the right to conduct legal proceedings. And the reasons for dishonor of the check are, if the check is overwritten, that is, if some overwriting happens, then it may be dishonored. If the signature is absent, if the name of payee is absent or not clearly written, the amount written in the words and figure does not match, if the account number is not mentioned clearly, and if the drawer ordered the banks to stop payment of the check, then also the bank will refuse to if the drawer orders the bank to stop the payment of checks. If the court of law has given an order to the bank to stop payment of check, if the drawer has closed the account before presenting the check, if the fund in the bank account is insufficient. In all these situations, the banks will refuse to pay the check. This is known as the dishonoring of check. Here, a brief description about the crossing of a check. Crossed check is given. A crossing is an instruction to the paying banker to pay the amount of check to a particular bank and not over the counter. That is, crossing is an instruction to the paying banker to pay the amount of check to a particular bank, not over to the counter. The crossing of check. A crossing is an instruction to the paying banker to pay the amount of check to a particular bank, not over the counter. The crossing of the check secures the payment to a banker. It also traces the person so receiving the amount of check. Addition of word not negotiable or account pay only is necessary to restrain the negotiability of the check. The crossing of the check ensures security and protection to the holder. That is, it is for protecting the check. That is, crossing is made, and this through crossing the amount can be paid to the account of the holder only. There are different types of crossing. General crossing, check buyers, across it faces an additional two parallel traverse line. That is, there will be an two parallel line on the check. Special crossing means check buyers across its face an addition of banker's name, and in addition to this traverse line, there will be inside that name of the bank also will be given. That is special crossing. Restrictive crossing, it direct to the collecting banker that they need to credit the amount of check only to the account of the pay. That is, in this case the check can be transferred to the account of the payee only. Non-negotiable crossing means it is when the word not negotiable are written between the two parallel traverse line is known as the not negotiable. That is, a general crossing is two parallel line. Here it is not negotiable, and State Bank of India, if it is not negotiable. Restrictive means the account payee only, and in the case of if bank is given, it is known as special crossing. This is about the crossing of a check. Crossing means it is to protect the we can get the will get the amount over the counter, but it is not safe if it is crossed and given, then it will be transferred to the account holders account only. These are the features of negotiable instrument. That is, negotiable instruments are written documents containing the negotiable instruments are instrument of documents transferable from one person to another, and it contains certain features that it is freely transferable. It contains unconditional promise to pay. It can be used to transfer money only. The amount must be certain, time must be certain, it must contain the sign of the maker, then the pay must be certain, it is subject to the legal action, or the right to sue is also given. These are the features of negotiable instruments.